Welcome to this humanitarian briefing on Ukraine for cities, organized in partnership with Metropolis. My name is Antu Duong, and I am a co-director here at the Geneva Cities Hub, which is an organization that seeks to better connect cities, city networks to the international work and international actors here in Geneva. So as you know, Geneva is a humanitarian hub with many actors present, including, of course, the UN family, the Red Cross and Red Crescent family, NGOs, and of course, states. They all are present in Geneva, and many of them are dealing with humanitarian affairs. Ukraine has been the subject of much attention, of course, since the start of the conflict on 24th of February. And since then, humanitarian actors have significantly mobilized to protect and assist civilians in Ukraine. So cities in Ukraine have been in the limelight, given that the conflict is taking place in cities, around cities. And media have extensively reported on how municipal authorities organize themselves to protect and assist their own population with shelter, food, water, healthcare, information as well. Humanitarian actors have concentrated in cities to provide assistance to civilians, to evacuate them with convoys. And we've heard how cities in neighboring countries around Ukraine have also organized themselves to welcome the thousands, if not millions, of refugees pouring in their cities. And so we also heard about how cities worldwide have been helping Ukrainian cities by sending food, clothes, medicine, mattresses. So we've heard a lot about cities in that conflict in Ukraine. In Geneva, humanitarian briefings are usually directed at states. However, we thought that in this situation, cities also deserve a specific briefing so as to better understand the humanitarian situation and the needs, and to ensure that their support provided is yielding the best results on the ground. And on the other hand, when we're talking about humanitarian actions and cities, we also need to look at how international humanitarian actors engage, or should engage at least, with local authorities, both as potential donors, but also mainly on the ground in Ukraine, even more so where local authorities are fully functional and among the main actors dealing with humanitarian aid. So before opening the panel, allow me here to give the floor to Jordi Lacker, who's with us from Metropolis, for a few welcoming remarks as well. Jordi, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Yes, I'm the Secretary General of Metropolis, the global network of major cities and metropolitan areas. And let me start by just thanking the Geneva Cities Hub for their initiative, an initiative on how to do things well, basically, on just connecting available knowledge and need to the cities that are eager to get activated. As we just heard, we are back to a terrifying picture, that of cities as targets of rage and violence unleashed on the physical and human tissue of cities. This is not completely new, unfortunately, in our world. In recent years, we've seen this happen to cities like Halep, Mosul, Sana'a, and yet the scale and the suddenness of what has happened in Ukraine is, I believe, of great concern. We also see the cities as places of resistance and defiance, and I do want to also name these. They are not only victims in this conflict, they also are big players, and the courage and the defiance of citizens is also a source of inspiration. However, all of this comes at a huge humanitarian cost, and we are now here to talk about this cost, and also as an enabler of cities as a different kind of player. Cities as actors of solidarity and support. Cities in Ukraine itself sheltering hundreds of thousands of internally displaced people, and then elsewhere in Europe, sheltering refugees. Cities getting ready and sending concrete humanitarian aid, and cities already thinking about playing their role in supporting the reconstruction of the urban and metropolitan tissue in Ukraine. And for all of these, cities need expert advice. They need to understand the stakes. They need to understand the needs, and that's the reason why we've teamed up with the Geneva Cities Hub and with all the experts that are here today, to whom I'm very thankful, because I know from firsthand that large cities that are members of our network and also small villages are really eager to understand how they can better help. So thank you so much, and really looking forward to listening to you all today.
Thank you very much, Jordi. And before opening the panel, a few housekeeping matters very quickly. As you've noticed, everything will be in English. There's no interpretation. We encourage you to use the chat, but better actually to keep your question, to raise them at the end of the panel, and we'll be able to allow you to talk as a panelist. I'll also be quite strict on timing, and I'm here speaking talking to the speakers. Please don't, go beyond 6-7 minutes for your intervention, please, so as to allow enough time for the Q&A. And just for your information, I've looked at the registration list, and I couldn't recognize all the emails there, but I've seen a lot of interest from cities such as Lyon in France, Barcelona, Madrid in Spain, Tampere in Finland, Riga, Latvia, Gdynia, Poland, Örebro in Sweden, Berlin in Germany. There's also, I understand, the Hungarian and Rwandan Association of Local Authorities. So, there's quite a bit of interest. Other North American and South American cities as well, who probably cannot connect due to time difference. But it would be good it's good to know that you're interested in that briefing. Let me now open the floor, and I think we have Mika here. Yes, you here online. Mika, you're the deputy mayor of the city of Bucha, which was once a quiet town in the outskirts of Kyiv, but has been the theater of fierce fighting. Most of its residents have fled, but some of them have stayed behind. So, Mika, could you tell us what's the current humanitarian situation and needs in Bucha? And what are your priorities from a humanitarian standpoint? And how does your city cooperate with other cities providing humanitarian help and with international partners more generally? Mika, you have the floor.
Hello to everybody. I hope you hear me well, because I have to go. I'm on my road from Paris to Germany, and I have no chance to change that. So I'm excuse me if the sound is not very good. Is it okay? Do you hear me well?
It's perfect, Mika.
That's great. So greetings to all from Bucha, from Ukraine, and from let me say a couple of words about my city and about our mayor, because he's the head of the Kyiv Regional Association. So he's the head of the mayors of Kyiv region, and we work with very deep cooperation with Kyiv as the capital and the mayor Klitschko, because we are in the agglomeration, and before this tragedy, which make Bucha well known all over the world, we were quite sustainable, very self-paid suburb near the Kyiv. It was comfortable suburb for the middle class people. So we knew how to live on our own budget, how to earn money, how to manage that.
Mika, sorry, we losing you.
How to develop our city.
Mika,
Those taxes we read that which is not only the city.
Mika, switch off the camera.
Yes.
Mika, sorry, we're losing you. Can you just switch off your camera so that we can hear you? The line gets very cut.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, I think so. Could you?
So,
okay, go ahead.
So let me repeat, please, that Bucha, it's not only the city, it's also the community. We have 13 settlements all together. So we have Bucha plus villages, and we rule as a community. So we have to maintain the same level of standards of living, not only in the city, but in the suburb, in the villages. So we spent, after the liberation of Bucha, we spent 1 month, that was April, to restore the infrastructure, to restore the electricity, watering system, and gas supply. And now it's all the infrastructure is operating again in Bucha. We spent May to restore businesses and to encourage banks and shops to reopen and to work again. So now we are not feeding people by humanitarian aid, but they could buy all the stuff themselves. And we restarted cash programs with ICRC, with Red Cross International, and with some other organizations to support people by cash to encourage business to run again. And now we are at the point where we could rethink how we could develop strategically in the nearest 6 months, or maybe 1 year or 2 years, after being harmed by Russians in very, very cruel way. So that's how we see the situation at the moment in Bucha. And we are very interested in direct relations with European city, because it helps us to understand better what we could do to restore normal life as it was before the invasion. Because for us, it's very new to have this international relations and to have these direct communications with other cities. We have got a lot of support, food support and humanitarian aid in April and May. But now we realize that we need to build up projects, direct projects, and maybe some common businesses to help us to rebuild those which were destroyed during the occupation.
Thanks, Mika. Could you just maybe dwell a little bit on whether or not you have received humanitarian aid by other cities, or any kind of support by other cities?
Yes, now we are building like direct relations with the cities of the size of Bucha. For example, we build up quite good communication with the mayor of Bergamo, and we are waiting for his visit in Bucha maybe in June. Also, we were working directly with Cascais in Portugal, and with traditionally with Palanga in Lithuania, and with Trushin in Poland. That's our main partners in Europe at the moment, but we are negotiating with some German cities like Dresden. And yesterday I had very good talk. We had very good talk as a part of official delegation with the mayor of Paris. She is very keen to build up the chain of support for the Kiev region cities, which suffered a lot. We received food and mostly food supply, but also we started to receive cars and equipment, because all our equipment was destroyed. We lost at least half of our municipal transport and equipment during the fights. To operate the city, we are asking for the machinery from outside, from Kiev and from other Ukrainian cities, and now our European partners help us to get machinery to operate. So that's like this at the moment, but and it's more or less okay now, but we think that we need to change our strategy towards how we should protect people. I mean, civil protection, because we discovered that if situation will repeat, what is optional it could be, we need to protect better our kids, our families, our civilians. And we don't have proper chain of shelters, for example, or when we were building new houses, Bucha was building a lot before the war. We didn't think that we need to have proper basements, for example, to hide the people from the rocket attack. So we want to change the strategy of development of the city based on those we have learned. So we need to advice of other cities who maybe who solved that before. That's very important for us to protect people and to return for them this feeling of safety, because we want Bucha citizens to come back. Because before the occupation, 60,000 people were living in Bucha, and at the moment only 25,000 came back. That's not so bad, but that's not those amount we would like to have. So we are working on that to encourage people to come back, and for that we need to protect them, to guarantee safety for the families and for the kids.
Thank you, Mika. Message well understood about the need to better prepare, and have prevention strategies in terms of protection of civilians. Thanks a lot for that, Mika. I know that you have to go somehow, somewhere. Stay with us as long as you can, and then because people might have questions at the end. Let me now turn to Olga from Kharkiv. Olga, you are the director from the Department for Cooperation with International Agencies and Financial Institutions in the city of Kharkiv, which is only 50 kilometers away from the Russian border. And the city, your city, has also been the subject of very intense bombardments. I know it's better now. Ukraine has regained control over the city, but I understand that you can still hear shelling in some areas. So please tell us what's the current humanitarian situation and needs in Kharkiv. Again, tell us about the city-to-city cooperation in the field of humanitarian assistance, and what, in your view, could be done to basically enhance this cooperation. Tell us also about the relationship with national administration in terms of humanitarian aid. The floor is yours, Olga. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the colleagues, and thank you, first of all, to Geneva Cities Hub for this opportunity to be here with you and to have the opportunity to give the overview situation in Kharkiv city. I was listening to my colleague from Bucha. Of course, we have all the same problems in each city, and we are very similar, even it's in Bucha as a small city or Kharkiv as like 1.5 million city for today. So we all have the same problems, starting from the 24th of February. Kharkiv was the first who were under the full-scale attack of Russian Federation. And today we are still fighting against these Russian occupiers, because we are still having heavy shellings every day and every night in Kharkiv. Just recently, this night was also what's not calm, because a lot of one of the districts was destructed, and was destructed with the residential estate again, supermarkets and so on. So no people injured, but this is just was the luck. But every day we're still having those heavy shellings from air and from artillery weapons, and we are still, so every day the fight is ongoing on. But of course, currently we have now like the structural organization, how to work on the humanitarian aid, and it's not so complicated now as it was, for example, before when we just were starting. For us, it was something new. We did not never do that work on the humanitarian aid for the city, but we've done our best. So starting from the 24th of February, we started first to apply to our international partners. The mayor applied to our sister cities and partner cities that Kharkiv has for today 30 sister cities and partner cities, and there was the first who like put their shoulder to our city to help. Of course, the needs from the start of the war and the needs now for humanitarian needs, I mean, it is different. But anyhow, for today, despite of any constant shillings that we have for now, the city's utilities work every day to support Kharkiv livelihoods and to repair the affected homes. So today, as a result of fighting, I will give you just the figures for you to understand those humanitarian catastrophe that we have today. It's more than 2,000 infrastructure objects and facilities have been destroyed. It's approximately 1,871 residential buildings, 109 schools, 56 kindergartens, 26 hospitals, and 266 administrative buildings. So according to the preliminary estimations of the experts, we can say that about 30% of the high-rise buildings in Kharkiv are uninhabited anymore. And so the residents will need new housing. Of course, this is the main challenge and the main problem for today. Because we now are resettling those people to the hostels. We are doing special evacuation points in the city, but this is all not constant. This is all permanent to leave. So this is the main focus on what we are now focusing as the city government to construct the new houses for those people. If we are talking about the utilities, what is going on now, the heating, water supply, of course, transport infrastructure, they're also all in a great destruction. And for today, we are doing our best, and our utilities are working 24 hours a day to repair those destructions that we have. So what we can say that humanitarian aid from our different partners, from international organizations, sister cities, partner cities, businesses, and so on, are divided into like three main directions. Yes, it's food for the people who are staying in Kharkiv. It's hygiene products and medicines for the hospitals and for the people, and the construction materials and the special equipment for the municipal utilities that are working every day on the on supporting the livelihood of the city. If we're talking now about the food, we of course it is not now so intense situation as it was, for example, in the first months of war, because now a lot of supermarkets are open, and we had the meetings with the local business. Mayor all the time has those meetings every week, are trying to support them, and we are trying to have a lot of programs now. We tried once with one British donor to give people cash. So that people would by their own have the opportunity to buy what they want in the supermarket or in the pharmacy or anywhere that they would like to. We have the list of most like socially unprotected people and families that need the most those support, and we are trying to do that, because first we are not giving the people what they do not want, for example, and secondly, we are reloading our economy. That is very, very important for now, that the people will have the working places. So this is like what we are doing for the food. Of course, we are now trying, even if their international organizations are trying to help, we are asking them to buy the food in the local productions from the local business. So like that, we are trying to support our local business in Kharkiv region and in Kharkiv city. Saying about the medicines, we are closely working with US. They are with US foundations. They are helping us with the military hospital in Kharkiv. We have the biggest military hospital in Ukraine, which were also attacked several times. And all the soldiers from the front line are, a lot of them, the most, I think, from the eastern part of Ukraine, are coming to the military hospital in Kharkiv. So for today, this is also one of our aim of support. everyday support, and we are trying there our best also to give them what they are needing. So talking about what you asked me about the national level, yes, we have the national now hub for humanitarian aid, and through this national humanitarian hub, we're also obtaining the most is food, like the special kits for the people, and this is the Office of President is the coordinating like this work, and we're also obtaining. Of course, from our point of view here for today, we are more, as also my colleague from Bucha said, that we are now more considered the problem of the Kharkiv revival as the city, because if we will do only the humanitarian aid and focus on the food and supplying of the people, then we will not be able to support the livelihood of the people as there is. We have the tendency now for today that the people are coming back to Kharkiv. It's approximately 3,000, 5,000 per day. So now I can constantly say to you that it's approximately 1 million people for today staying in Kharkiv. And they should have their normal life and comfortable life. And first of all, even not the food is yes, but also they need the municipal support. I mean, the water, gas, electricity, and the winter is coming. So we are now focusing a lot on the heating system, because a lot of boiler houses were damaged. A lot of pipes which are giving the heating to the houses were destructed. We have, for example, some areas now where the houses are fully okay. They was not destructed. The flats are okay. The people can live there. But for example, the boiler house for those 10,000 flats are destructed fully. So the people will not be able to have the winter time in their flat, even if the shillings will stop or if it will be not so heavy as it is now. So we can divide all the humanitarian, like in the end of my speech, we can divide the two directions in the humanitarian work for today. The humanitarian aid for most socially unprotected people on food, medicines, and hygiene support, and so on. And the second very, very important direction is the municipal infrastructure that gives opportunity to people to be in the city and to have the comfortable conditions to stay still in Kharkiv. We, of course, also focusing now on the new shelters. The underground in Kharkiv help us a lot, and helping still, because on some of the underground stations, still people are living because they do not have where to go, or they are afraid. It's a psychological problems also. And the psychological support is also important here. We're working on that every day. We have a lot of doctors that are helping us to people who are so afraid that they are even afraid to go out from the underground. So a lot of problems inside, but anyway, we have really appreciate all the help and support that our international partners are giving. And of course, we are lucky that we have our special department in the municipality who are working with the international organizations and partners, because in some of the municipalities, they do not have those special departments, and it's more complicated, yes, to have those contacts. But we are looking forward to establish new contacts, to have new partners, to have direct contacts with the cities, because only the mayors and the cities and the municipalities understand all those problems in the municipal infrastructure that should be restored, that should be reviewed, that should be reconstructed immediately, that the people could be able to live comfortably in their flats.
Thank you, Olga. Very clear. Thanks a lot for this very comprehensive briefing about the humanitarian situation and the need to start, of course, rebuilding the city. I think we heard your messages very clearly about shelter, about the need to rebuild municipal infrastructure to provide heating, electricity, running water for people to come back to the city. Thanks a lot for that. Now we'll move forward with international humanitarian actors that we all know very well here in Geneva, but probably they're less known to cities worldwide in Ukraine. But we'll start with Colin. You're the head of the emergency operations in Ukraine and surrounding countries, so quite busy at the moment, I can imagine. You're from the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. If you could just please very briefly explain what is the IFRC first, for those who don't know the organization. Provide a very brief overview about the humanitarian situation in the country as such, and how do you work with local actors? In particular here, of course, we think about the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. And how do you think, in your view, how can cities abroad help their counterparts in Ukraine, or the country as such in general? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. Thank you very much to Geneva Cities Hub for the invitation. And I just want to start out by extending our solidarity to our colleagues who are on the ground trying to provide humanitarian assistance to all those that are impacted. So again, for me, I am in Budapest supporting the various operations that we have throughout the region, not only in the Ukraine, but the surrounding countries. As a member of the Federation, so within the wider Red Cross family, we have the International Committee of the Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies, and then in each of our respective countries around the world, there is usually a Red Cross or Red Crescent National Society that forms the national organization within that given country, and they typically have an auxiliary role to their government in providing a range of different types of services within the confines of their national boundaries and mandate. In terms of our response here, I mean, within the Red Cross family, we have a number of national societies, if you will, at the local level in the region that are responding as part of their auxiliary role to their governments. And then we have a range of sister-to-sister national society support that is being extended to other national societies within the region. And then from a global standpoint, we have a number of national societies from across the world that are providing not only financial assistance, but technical support in terms of responders, humanitarian aid, etc. I'll walk you through a quick slide presentation that may help us paint a broader picture of our response within the area. Next slide. So this is more of an operations flow just to kind of, show how we respond. So during peacetime, of course, we're all concerned about vulnerabilities and threats. And there's a range of disaster planning preparedness that's going on behind the scenes based on those imminent threats that a particular country or Red Cross, Red Crescent Society deem are priorities. And then we look collectively within the network at primary triggers. What are those disaster cause or specific event cause needs, et cetera? Within our network, we identify the capacities of the Red Cross or Red Crescent to be able to respond and sustain the response. We ask ourselves whether or not that national society, Red Cross, Red Crescent, has asked for assistance, international assistance. We make assessments on whether or not they have resources, internal resources of their own that they can use to jumpstart operations and sustain operations into the future. And then we as a community of Red Cross, Red Crescents ask ourselves whether or not we have the capacity to support and a request for help. And then because this is an international event spanning a regional focus, we go through the process of identifying the extent of an emergency appeal, a call for action, a call for humanitarian assistance, for financial assistance, for human resource assistance. So here in this column under response options, the Red Cross, Red Crescent network has a global roster of first responders that go in with various capacities to provide support to the local Red Cross, Red Crescent. So in this case, the Ukrainian Red Cross, we have assistant relationship. We work through a coordinated way to provide assistance to them, working in a very centralized and coordinated manner. Okay, in terms of financial support, of course, there's a range of avenues by which we can contribute funding to support the National Society, in this case, the Ukrainian Red Cross. For those somewhere in the world, depending on where you sit in the country, which country you come from, typically you would support through your national society. There are options, of course, to support emergency appeals through the International Federation of Red Cross, International Committee of the Red Cross, but typically individual donors who are interested in supporting this cause and the cause within the wider region, they have the option of contributing resources through their national society. Okay, so that kind of gives you a picture of how we operate within the wider Red Cross movement. Next slide. These are just numbers at a glance. Of course, the situation is fluid, so these numbers are changing by the day. But again, to build upon our colleagues who previously spoke, of course, we're monitoring the inflows and outflows of refugees across the international borders. Of course, we're monitoring the situation of IDPs, people that are moving within Ukraine. And of course, in 3 to 4 months from now, when winter's upon us, we're concerned about some of those winterization challenges that we heard from our previous speakers. Okay, of course, humanitarian access remains also a big concern. So those we're keeping to ensure the safety and security of not only local populations, but of course the international actors. This is a heat map. Again, the figures are changing, but just to show kind of the inflows and outflows in terms of scale. And the number of people that have moved into Poland, into some of the surrounding countries, and then some who may not be returning to Ukraine, but may be choosing to extend out beyond the Ring 2 countries into other countries within Europe. We are working with our teams to kind of get a sense for what that looks like in the future. In order to be able to scale up assistance through local national Red Cross societies, also to adapt our particular programming to meet those needs. We've heard about the importance of cash programming. That is something that the Red Cross has successfully been able to jumpstart, if you will. And we're in the process of scaling up cash assistance quite broadly within the region. Okay, next slide. Scenario planning, of course, we're always interested in knowing, in trying to project and forecast how the situation is going to evolve and hopefully de-escalate. This is important for us to start scenario planning and keep up with the events developing in Ukraine and the wider region, so that we can also scale up assistance requests for additional resources, financial, material, human resources, in not only for the future months, but also in the years to come. We are committed to continuing to support national societies in the region with augmenting and bolstering their capacity to continue with a localized response. So this particular process behind the scenes is an ongoing exercise. Next slide. I'll just offer you a couple of key highlights just in terms of the wider Red Cross response, and just to provide some insights into the type of activities and areas we're supporting with. Next slide. So to date, across the top left, there are 16 countries within the region here that are assisting people that have been displaced in providing humanitarian service points, health provisions, humanitarian aid. 4.8 million Swiss francs to date has been distributed to over 61,000. Again, this is within the wider regional context. So just to highlight that, there's a range of different services, activities that are being stood up. Of course, we are eager to increase and work closely with our other Red Cross family members within Ukraine, the International Committee, obviously working hand in hand with the Ukrainian Red Cross to scale up humanitarian aid in the country. Next slide. These are our operational strategy activities in terms of cash assistance. Of course, these are aspirational, and that's what we're hoping to move forward in the weeks to come. Right now, we're developing our long-term programming to be able to have some sustained programs that can provide assistance beyond the immediate emergency phase, but into the medium term and long term phase as well. I'll stop there and I'm happy to answer any specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Colin. Again, a very comprehensive overview of what you're doing in country. I really would like to underline your messages about financial support to the respective national societies, basically in which are worldwide in each of the countries of the world, to which basically cities could contribute so that they in turn can, support the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. Or also you mentioned the international appeal by the Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, to which people can also contribute directly. I also take the cash message as very important in highlighting, that humanitarian aid has really moved, in the direction of cash that allows people to basically buy what they need and to revive the local economy, as we've heard from Bucha and Kharkiv earlier. Thanks a lot for that. Please stay with us. We hope we have questions afterwards. We now move on to OCHA. Anvar, are you with us? Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Oh, and we can hear you and see you. Perfect. Anvar, you're from the UN, the United Nations family, so a different family from the Red Cross. Please explain to us very briefly who is OCHA, for those who don't know the organization, and tell us what are the coordination mechanisms that you have on the ground, including if you have them at local level, and tell us also how basically the flash appeal that you coordinated within the UN and how basically cities can contribute to that. So it's yours.
Thank you very much, Antu. Yes, my name is Anvar Munavarov. I'm working in the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Geneva. We are part of the UN family, of the UN Secretariat, and our primary role is to coordinate humanitarian action globally, not only for the UN, but with our partners from non-government organizations, local partners, and other humanitarian actors. So our most senior official, the Undersecretary General and Emergency Relief Coordinator, has a mandate to, as the most senior official in the system, to coordinate international assistance globally. So I have a few slides also that I will take you through very quickly. Just focusing primarily on the UN and our partners' response nationally so far, on some of the challenges that we're facing, the coordination structures on the ground, and the planning and fundraising tools that you can contribute to or get familiarized with. So on this slide, just to show that so far, since the war began on the 24th of February, the UN and partners reached almost 8 million people. There are now over 300 humanitarian partners in Ukraine. UN is only a small part of it. It's mostly national non-government organizations and international non-government organizations, plus Red Cross and Red Crescent family that work together in providing humanitarian assistance. And the number of humanitarian actors has actually tripled in Ukraine, showing a huge interest from the international community in providing assistance to the country. I will talk about the hubs later on. Just to mention that the speed of the response, the scale up, as we call it, has been quite unprecedented for Ukraine. You can see in this chart on the right side that in mid-April, we were able to reach only 2.5 million, but as of end of May, that number reached almost 8 million. So the scale is accelerating quite rapidly, and that trend will continue. And in terms of the geographic coverage, you can see that the response is spread fairly evenly across the country. In the east and the west, and also in central areas. So that's, please, next slide. In terms of challenges, and my IFRC colleague also mentioned some of them, access, of course, remains a major concern for humanitarian actors, especially in areas where the active fighting is still ongoing in the east and north of the country. That, of course, impedes our ability to deliver humanitarian assistance to all the areas that we would like to be in. Of course, the scope and scale of this emergency is quite unprecedented, with the number of people affected and on the move. So we have seen the largest displacement of people in Europe since World War II, and the response is of course is quite challenging in that context. Just a few words on logistics. Ukraine is a huge country, of course, and it requires a lot of logistical preparedness and traveling for convoys for people to reach certain areas. Just maybe a few words on cash, and others also pointed out cash is a big part of our response. It's planned that up to 600 million will be mobilized or requested from donors until the end of August to assist some 0.2 million people. And so far, as of early June, partners were able to reach 1.6 million with cash assistance at the amount of 200 million. Just maybe a few words on our planning and resource mobilization tools. I think you may have you may know about or heard about the flash appeals or the plans that UN and partners put together for an emergency response in Ukraine. That was done in the first days of the current crisis. And in April, the flash appeal was revised to almost 2.2 billion, targeting 8.7 million people out of almost 16 million people in need. And our donors were quite generous, and as of today, over 70% of the flash appeal has been funded, amounting to almost $1.6 billion received so far. There is a shortfall of nearly 30%, and we are hoping that donors and our partners will continue their generous support to the flash appeal. Just maybe a few words on our other tool that our partners may wish to use. In Ukraine, there is a Ukraine Humanitarian Fund, which has been there for many years. And this is a country-based pool fund where donors can provide unearmarked funding. And that fund has now received over $200 million. And I think this is the most convenient and timely and efficient instrument for donors who are not sure where to contribute and how to contribute. This is an instrument which allows the country team, the humanitarian country team on the ground, to prioritize received funding and to allocate it to where the needs are most acute. So so far this year, 90 million from that fund has been allocated, and more funding will be made available. And the primary recipients of the Ukraine Humanitarian Fund are non-governmental organizations, local partners, and other UN agencies. So I think it's one of the most efficient tools available for the international community to contribute. And there is a link to that on this slide. Just maybe to conclude with a notion that apart from member states and donors, there was a huge outpour of private donations to Ukraine. And so far, there were over 600 donations recorded from the private sector and individuals, totaling over 1.4 billion. And that's quite an impressive amount, and I'm sure it's still underreported. So I'll stop here, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. Over to you, Antu.
Thank you so much, Anvar. Super useful. So we heard very complimentary work by the UN family, and with its different tools, basically the flash appeal, but also, as you said, the Ukrainian Humanitarian Fund that has been there for quite a long time. I also would like to again underline the cash modality that really is used to allow people to buy whatever they need instead of sending, items that are maybe not needed, not relevant, or not timely enough to assist people in Ukraine. Let me now turn to Jeremy from ICFA. You will explain who you are, basically. You'll do it better than I do. And please tell us about the current work of NGOs on the ground, the challenges. And when talking about local actors, because there's a trend which is around the localization of humanitarian action, we actually think more about civil society than we do about local authorities. But please tell us how you work with both of them, local civil society and local authorities, and how can NGOs better link up with cities worldwide willing to send humanitarian aid to Ukraine. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Angtu, and good morning to all. It's a real pleasure to be here. So my name is Jeremy Wellard. I'm the head of coordination with ICFA. ICFA is a global network of 140 national and international NGOs, and we are focused on supporting NGOs to work on principled and effective humanitarian assistance. So in the Ukraine context, as in 2014, the first responders to the humanitarian challenges caused by the escalation of conflict in 2022 were, of course, the community, local people, local volunteers, and civil society and non-governmental organizations. It's actually been estimated there were 70,000 CSOs operating in Ukraine before the escalation of conflict, and at least half of these continue to operate today. So the 187 national NGO partners reflected in OCHA's work is a great indication of the work that's touching the international system, but not really reflective of the scope of what we know is actually taking place out there within local organizations and their relationships. And we can see many local organizations are engaged in supporting their communities under the banner of humanitarian assistance. And this reflects what happens in many responses to humanitarian needs that we see globally. In many cities, the initial work really was, as I mentioned, the volunteer and NGO initiatives. And these were targeting urgent needs that people had in the cities themselves, in the neighborhoods, and in some cases even focusing on intercity cooperation between NGOs and others. What's important to note is most of the local and national NGOs, particularly working in this response to the humanitarian needs in Ukraine, they were previously implementing rights and development programs, and they face a challenge of only having a limited experience of humanitarian practice and knowledge of the humanitarian system and what we mean when we come in as these international organizations talking about the humanitarian sector. But also because many of these development programs were immediately paused or halted, they've been impossible to continue implementing and to receive funding for this ongoing work. And this has resulted in a real significant financial challenge for local organizations, including to retain their staff. So we do all need to think of more innovative ways to channel resources to local humanitarian actors, particularly local NGOs and CSOs. There were, of course, a relatively small number of NGOs in Ukraine that were working in a humanitarian situation because of the ongoing humanitarian needs since 2014. And they had well-established programs, particularly in the East, working along the contact line in both government and non-government controlled areas. And these organizations certainly had a head start on engaging with the international system, and we've continued to see this strong level of engagement within the coordination architecture that is represented by OCHA. And what we saw with the escalation of conflict was, I guess, a displacement of people and of networks, but not a breakdown of these international mechanisms. And the fact that we can talk about humanitarian assistance being provided over the whole country really indicates that many of the organizations have remained in place. Operations were scaled down, people were moved or relocated, but in many cases the operations have not necessarily stopped. The structures are in place, and there's been a massive effort by many stakeholders, international actors as well as local actors to reinforce these, as we've heard from IFRC and OCHA. So I mentioned most of the international and national NGOs with humanitarian experience in Ukraine were working in the East. And one of the key challenges at the start of this escalation was that many staff were displaced. this has presented operational and HR challenges, including around the safety and security of staff and their families. And it's also really impacted the transfer of knowledge and experience from those working in the situations before. And it's really important that we also redouble efforts to working in areas that are facing conflict or in post-conflict situations, to actually ensuring we get the experience capacity of civil society actors into those areas so they continue to provide the assistance that they must. I mentioned a real challenge for both national and NGOs and their partners is working with the international system and trying to understand these new structures and these new language. And it is a very complex system, I think we must admit that. But this has really prompted locally driven efforts to engage. And we've seen a whole range of new initiatives in the coordination space in much of Ukraine. We saw both physical and virtual structures rapidly being developed to enhance national coordination, including platforms for fundraising, logistics, as well as more technical coordination and platforms for the delivery of assistance. And these were often initiated by city or national authorities or by the private sector or NGOs, and often a combination of all. Physical NGO hubs have been established in several cities, and these help NGOs that were displaced from severely conflict-affected areas to engage with other stakeholders locally. And these hubs have really led to an exchange of both geographical and humanitarian knowledge, and allowed external support actors to connect with local NGOs in a more structured way. And we hope that this work will of course continue. We see cities have also played a key role in supporting NGOs with gathering resources. Finding funding and other resources and support in the cities was naturally much easier than further out in the oblast or other areas. And local NGOs particularly have reported their successes working with city leaders, with numerous volunteer groups, with businesses, and with other NGOs, including international NGOs, to mobilise quite a significant amount of necessary resources. It's really been quite impressive to see. But they do still face challenges with logistics, with distribution, especially when working outside of those urban environments. With so many IDPs in Ukraine, so many displaced people, we really see the challenges around access to good information. And I think this is an area where the relationship between humanitarian actors and cities can be really highlighted, because cities do have, and we've heard from our speakers earlier, that this access to great data on the needs not only of the IDPs, but also of the host communities or other people within their boundaries. And efforts around supporting and interpreting and sharing data with NGOs and partners and cities should be strengthened. And this is really relevant, of course, to areas such as cash programming. And I think everyone's emphasising cash programming today. It's incredibly important, so that people can actually choose to purchase the things that they need the most from local markets, rather than requiring external support. So you asked, Antu, how can NGOs better link with cities? And I think it's been fascinating to see the interest in the discussion today. And what I will take away from this discussion actually is the need to encourage our NGO members and partners to engage more in a humanitarian dialogue with cities worldwide. I think this might be an area that has been somewhat overlooked. And as we see cities taking perhaps more of a prominent role in a humanitarian space, we can work with our NGO actors who have offices in these cities to encourage them, whether they are large or small, to engage with the cities, to talk about a humanitarian narrative and to discuss ways that they can work together to provide this type of support and innovate in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for that. Sorry, let me turn this back. Thank you so much for that. It was very useful to hear, from the NGO perspective, how basically they work with cities, and it seems that there's quite a lot of work ongoing there on the ground, and that there's a lot on the shoulders of NGOs, but also there's a lot on the shoulders of local authorities. So how can we better help them, basically? So I think international agencies such as OCHA, other humanitarian actors as well, IFRC, should basically have a role there to better engage with local authorities. I think there are no questions so far on the chat. I'm just checking if people want to raise question at this point in time. We still have 15 minutes to go. People in the room as well, if you have questions, No, it doesn't seem to be the case. I have questions, basically. Oh, yeah, no, someone is raising its hand. Is it the case? Tim Waits from the Australian Permanent Mission. You have the floor. If you can talk.
Tim, can you hear me?
Yeah. You've got the floor, Tim. I think you're unmuted. Still can't hear you. Do you hear us? There you go.
There you go.
You've got the floor, Tim. Otherwise, Tim, I'll give you the floor a little bit later, because it seems that, oh, we've got a question from Louise from Impact Initiatives, I believe. A question for city authorities. What data and information would you require? Sorry, I can't read it anymore.
What data and information would you require to plan out the humanitarian relief and urban planning services that you are in charge of?
Asking whether Olga or Mika would like to provide an answer to that question. Data and information required by cities to plan out the humanitarian relief and urban planning services. What kind of information do you require? Mika?
Do you want me to, may I reply like in a minute, please?
Sure, Olga, you have the floor then.
Yeah.
If you take the
Olga
floor.
first.
You mean the data from our side on our humanitarian needs, or I just a little bit connection was missed the question actually. So you need the data on the humanitarian need and the construction needs, or on the urban planning, or what do you mean exactly?
Louise, can you specify your question? And Tim will write down the question.
Okay.
It's a very interactive discussion here with the chat.
Yeah, just using that opportunity, I would like kindly to ask you, I sent you our presentation of Kharkiv, like the main needs for today to the Geneva Cities Hub. If you would so be kind to share that with all participants today, I think that will be also a good opportunity to understand all the needs for today that we have, and to understand the situation this presentation is divided actually into different spheres and touches everything on the humanitarian ground that we need for today.
I'll be definitely happy to send it out.
Thank you.
To all those people who have registered. Louise has basically specified her question. What data is most critical at this stage to plan out and organize humanitarian interventions in affected cities, as well as data on longer-term recovery needs? What do you need as city authority? Olga.
Okay, for today, as I told already, if we are critically talking about the humanitarian aid, we need to divide it into like three main directions. It's the food, medicines, and all what is connected with the construction, reconstruction, and revival of the critical municipal infrastructure. We have all those lists, we have all those data, and if we have the opportunity to share, I will share it with you immediately. We have like the list of food for today that our people are the most wanted to receive on our humanitarian points, which are opened in the city every day. We have the medicines that our hospitals are giving us every day and updating the list of medicines every week. Actually, we're doing that. We have our construction materials and needs of our municipal utilities that we need now to support livelihood of the city. So if you would like to receive that, just let me know, and we will prepare more precise, more exact list of need on these three different topics, as we can say now.
Thank you, Olga. I'll definitely be happy to share anything that you want to share with
okay.
Happy to do so. I've got Tim who wrote his question in the chat, asking basically, asking how the different agencies working on policy and strategy for explosive weapons in cities, it is quite an issue, of course, are linking up. IFRC, I would imagine, more than ICRC, ICVA and OCHA, I would imagine. If you want to comment on EVIPA, policy and strategy.
Hello?
Oh, Mika, wait a sec. Sorry, we're on another question at the moment. I'll come back to you, Mika. Jeremy, you want the floor?
Yeah, I mean, I can just quickly come in on this one. And hi, Tim, great question. For us, we're really supporting the advocacy efforts that many NGOs are undertaking in this regard. This is a long and complex process working towards political declarations and this type of thing around the use of explosive weapons. And we actually have a briefing later today for an update on the progress, but the concerted effort has been ongoing since 2019, when Ireland particularly spearheaded an initiative in this regard, and a number of our members have been quite active. So I would say that the process is continuing, but these are long-term changes that are not necessarily having the impact we need in the world today, and we need to keep continually reinforcing the importance of IHL and of protection of civilians and these critical fundamental messages for the humanitarian space. Thanks.
Thanks a lot for that, Jeremy. Any other comments on that thing? Otherwise, I'll give back the floor to Mika to talk about the issue about, about data information needed. If that's not the case, Mika, you have the floor.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, we do.
Look, I'd like to add that now we are working on the list because we are reviewing our needs, and the best way is also if I work on that, finish and share with you, and maybe discuss online, and maybe we could work on that because we receive some aid, we have some discussions and appointments about how to we need our needs is in machinery and rebuilding at the moment, but we are in discussion, and at the moment I don't know exactly where we are because it's also very new for us, so we need to review the strategy as I mentioned before, and maybe we need consultant help in that as well.
Thank you for that, Mika. Noted. Please also don't hesitate to share any information with me, and then I'll be happy to distribute it among the participants. I have Daria Gonzarova who has asked for the floor. Daria, can you speak?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi. I can only speak, right? You don't need to see me.
No, we don't see you, but please introduce yourself before you.
Okay. I work for the European Committee of the Regions, and I would like to shortly inform you about the initiatives we launched with Ukraine recently, but also what we generally do if I have 2 minutes, something about that. So the European Committee of the Regions, we are a political assembly of about 300 local and regional politicians from all across the EU. And we have been working with Ukraine closely since 2015 through a special task force who were providing support and advice on decentralization reform. And it proved now that the successes of this reform really made the Ukrainian community strong and resilient in front of Russian military aggression. The war caught us off guard, probably as all of us. On 23rd of February, we were speaking to EU anti-corruption initiative program in Ukraine about the final arrangements to launch peer-to-peer exchanges with 5 Ukrainian cities, among which Mariupol, and then the next day it was all stopped and we had to repurpose what we do. So we quickly started to inform our members about the humanitarian aid needs of our partners, our website, and also directly. That was the first thing we did, and I will share with you, and then maybe you can share with the participants the website where we gather all the information. It's called Info Support Hub on Ukraine. That was the one strand. I'm not sure we're as efficient as the organizations specialized in humanitarian aid that spoke before, but we did what we could to connect cities to cities, let's say, or regional centers to regional centers. And then the second thing we did, and it became obvious in about several weeks into the war, it was the refugee crisis in border regions in the EU, but also a little bit beyond. So our members from the border regions were asking to be put in touch with other members further west, let's say, who would have capabilities to receive additional refugees. And for that, we built a special online tool within this Info Support Hub, which you will be able to access as well, where we gathered offers and requests for help. So that was both humanitarian aid for refugees who are already in the EU, but also concrete offers to relocate. Through that hub, requests for aid to IDPs could be also placed. So that was the second strand of helping refugees and helping local authorities who have to take care of the refugees to do so. And then the third strand that I think both the Deputy Mayor of Bucha and a representative of Kharkiv were mostly talking about is the reconstruction. We understand that already today our Ukrainian partners need to reconstruct their critical infrastructure and schools and hospitals and houses already today, not waiting before the end of the war. And more large-scale reconstruction will be needed in the aftermath. And this understanding is not only with us, with our organization, but also across the EU, across the cities, within other associations. This is why we consider it is very important to avoid duplication of efforts. And with our long-term partners, all European associations of local and regional authorities, such as Eurocities, CMR, Council of European Municipalities and Regions, CPMR, and Association of European Regions, and also Global Covenant of Mayors, for example, as initiative. We've been discussing, and we will soon launch an alliance, European Cities and Regions Alliance for Reconstruction of Ukraine. We are aiming to do so by the end of June, and it will...
I'm sorry, I'll just interrupt you because we're coming to the end, and I still want to address two other points. Could you...
That was all I wanted to say, basically, that we will launch an alliance that will aim to help reconstruction of Ukrainian cities and regions.
Thank you so much. And I think it would be quite interesting, again, to send all the information and including the link to the information hub that you've created on Ukraine. Just quickly let me know whether, cities that are outside the European Committee of Regions can contribute or not, or is it limited only to the Committee of Region members?
They certainly can, because we like to work with clusters and networks of networks. And as I mentioned, this alliance will be gathering together not only our members, but many, many more members of all the associations and also Ukrainian partners too.
Great. Let's keep in touch so that I can, distribute the all your information.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
I have a point by Andrei Latse on the chat, and I would like Olga and Mika to respond to him directly because he's looking for the contacts of their local emergency services that might be interested to receive any help. So that would be great if people could, Olga, both and Olga and Mika could answer on the chat. And then I had a question about Berlin. Berlin, I think, sorry, asked whether they've been asked to contribute to a certain mechanism that I don't know, sorry. And I was wondering whether both Olga and Mika could also provide an answer to that. So Berlin is saying that the Senate Administration of the Interior, Budgetization and Sports Berlin, Germany, have provided donation to the UCPN. Sorry, I'm not aware of that. And do these donations reach your cities? Are you aware of that, Mika and Olga? Mika, you have the floor, if you're still with us.
Yes, I'm with you. So really, do you hear me? Really, I don't know at the moment. I need to check, but I haven't heard about that by now. So I need to check because maybe other colleagues of mine are working. We're still a bit chaotic because for us it's very new, and sometimes we don't share information well. So let me check and then reply, please.
Thank you, Olga. On your side, do you have any information?
Actually, the same for me. I did not hear about that. I don't know that organization, but maybe our sport department do something with this Berlin. But for me, I need to check also. I did not heard about that from my side.
Thank you so much. I know there's Adrien Lisha who wants to speak. You have really 1 minute before we end up the meeting, Adrien. About a platform on local democracy agencies. If you're with us, please, you have 1 minute, Adrien, and then we'll have to close.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me the floor. I work for ALDA, the European Association for Local Democracy, and the methodology we use in Ukraine is based on this multi-stakeholder platform called Local Democracy Agencies that allows the cooperation between local authorities and civil society organizations. And also international cooperation partners. What we have now, we are working in Mariupol and Dnipro, especially on strengthening this cooperation. In the context of the war, of course, in Mariupol, we are focusing on IDPs, but we have been advocating a lot for strengthening the cooperation. And on the 22nd of June, we will have a conference in Brussels, a small conference, where we will present the different modalities of these local democracy agencies and the upcoming projects. So if you are interested to join, be my guest. Just wanted to emphasize on the fact that there is still a lot of work to be done in terms of cooperation to clarify how humanitarian actors and development actors can better cooperate and understand each other. I've been advocating for that for many years, including in the context of the Syrian crisis. And unfortunately, the gap remains very high. So thank you everyone for your commitment to improve this particular fact. And I hope we will have better successes in this case.
Thank you, Adrien. Please don't hesitate to send us the information that we can also share with participants. And I have a last speaker from the city of Lyon. I believe, Christophe Meunier, you have the floor if you want to raise your question, please.
Can you hear me?
Oui, c'est tout bon. On vous entend.
No, it's just a question. We do not have a cooperation with any cities in Ukraine. We used to have one with Mykolaiv a couple of years ago, and they are asking us to send material, especially buses for transportation in Mykolaiv. So I'd be very interested to get a list of construction equipment that would be needed by cities in Ukraine, so that maybe we could mobilize this equipment here in Lyon and send it to the relevant cities who are in particular needs of this equipment. So Olga, if you could help us get this list as soon as possible, so we can maybe act in this direction.
Thank you very much. I will do it just now. We are ready with that list. We are ready. I will do it. Yeah.
That's becoming very concrete. Thanks a lot to all participants, to all speakers, above all, for taking the time to provide this briefing to cities on humanitarian action in Ukraine. I think it's useful to have that kind of exchanges. I'm sorry it was a bit short, but please, any of you, don't hesitate to send us an information. We'll be happy to spread out the word. I think it's good that, cities in Ukraine have their list of what they need. Don't forget about the cash modality, really. I know it's a little bit more difficult for construction equipment, but for all the rest, it is a very efficient way of helping people in Ukraine regain a normal life in areas where they can. I'll stop there. I would like to thank you all again for following this event. It will be recorded and, of course, available on our website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye to everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye.